for the horse on this Journey Home program, because I want to remind the audience you are a convert to the church. So but you did tell your story before, but give them a little bit of a summary of why you're here on the journey.
Well, I was an atheist. I became an atheist at the age of 9, and I was a strident atheist. A lot of the atheists these days, they're strident, but I think they're a little intellectually confused. But I was quite proud of the fact that I had figured the whole thing out and it was all a scam. It really was my experiences on stage that started to bring me in. And the key to that was, I learned that no matter how well I prepared for a performance, no matter how well I learned my lines, researched the character, knew my blocking, if I wasn't open to an inspiration, a literal inspiration, the performance would be lifeless and dull and uninteresting. And the same was true for my fellow actors, that all I could do was prepare and then abandon myself in the moment of a run-through or a performance. To me, I called that the life force, the creative spirit. That really is the Holy Spirit. But that was a great grace because I had a tangible experience of something beyond myself. And that was the beginning. From that point, I read a lot of Carl Jung, who was Freud's disciple. I read his entire collected works, which is like 30 volumes. He was a very spiritual writer, but he was New Age and Gnostic and had a lot of confused notions. But it was at least feeding something in me. And it wasn't until many years later, when I had kids and I had some difficulties in my life and I was kind of in a foxhole, that I went to the library and just picked up a book. I was interested in reading philosophy or something, and it was C.S. Lewis, God in the Dock, which is an anthology of some of his writings. He was the first Christian I had come across who could make a reasonable case for the faith. I had really only seen televangelists. That was my view of Christianity. And I think it's important to keep in mind, especially now when we're trying to reach so many atheists and agnostics out there, that the reason so many people don't like the Christian church is they see a caricature of it. They see a caricature of it in the media. They see a lot of bad Christians. There's no shortage of bad Christians in the world. And we have to keep in mind that that could be what's blocking their progress. So it was for my case. Lewis mentioned this guy G.K. Chesterton. Chesterton was primarily responsible for Lewis's conversion. Chesterton's book, The Everlasting Man, was the capstone of what made Lewis finally convert from his own atheism into Christianity. So I started reading Chesterton. Chesterton, who is even more astonishing and even more amazing as a writer and a Christian. And then Chesterton kept mentioning this guy, Hilaire Belloc, who was Chesterton's friend. So following that thread, I finally figured out there's something here. And I had a friend, Mark Milburn, who was shepherding me into the church that I met on the internet. This was back in 2000, 1999, 2000. And I'm making the long story short. And he said, okay, if you want to come in, don't do RCIA, because you might find a bad RCIA, and there's lots of bad RCIAs. And he said, knowing you, you're going to bolt. You're not going to sit there for it. He said, I'll find you a good priest for private instruction. Father John J. Hughes, a former Anglican who became a Catholic priest, and whose father told him, if you become Catholic, I will never speak to you again, which is indeed what happened. So he paid a very dear price. Father Hughes then gave personal instruction to me and my wife, Karen, and then we were received into the Catholic Church at a time when people usually aren't. Usually it's the Easter Vigil. For us, it happened to be July 30th, 2000. I later learned Chesterton was received into the church on July 30th, 1922. So we happened to have been received on the anniversary of his reception. That was 12 years ago, as we speak, and since then, the journey continues, but it's been a great milestone, and really, really the best thing that's happened to me in my life, outside of my wife and kids.
Did your